Hello and welcome everyone to our speaker coffee chats for our 17th annual Canadian Holistic Nutrition Conference. We are very excited. The topic this year is holistic nutrition, exploring the spectrum of wellness. And today I am joined with one of our Calgary speakers, Dr. Christopher Spooner. Thank you so much for joining us today.
No, thanks for the invite. I'm looking forward to chatting with you guys.
Yeah, now your presentation is personalized nutrition for inflammatory bowel disease, exploring the role of nutrigenomics in managing Crohn's and colitis. That sounds amazing. Can you tell us why you're passionate about this topic this year?
I wish it was some sort of, anything other than I got it myself. I was diagnosed with Crohn's really early on. And so when I was first diagnosed, there was really not a lot out there. And I was just starting into naturopathic college down in Seattle. And so, you kind of had to figure out what was going on here. And just over the course of many, many years of having to work with that, I just gradually accumulated quite a large practice with, IBD patients. And yeah, it's a challenging condition. It really impacts people's lives in ways that I don't think people fully appreciate. You can actually have people with inflammatory bowel disease, you don't even know it. Yep. And it kind of flies under the radar, and so I think anything I can do to help promote understanding, to help get the support that people need, in terms of dietary approach and gut health, then I'm all on board. So that's why I'm passionate about it.
Yeah, I love that. Now, what can we expect to learn from your presentation this year?
Well,
probably a lot.
There's a lot. I've tried to sort of make this a much more digestible. There's a lot of things to cover in this. I want to talk a little bit about some of the way that Crohn's and colitis are different, how they might show up a little bit differently, or how you can start to distinguish that in a practice with your nutrition, because there's different processes that are in place. I do a lot of teaching, speak quite frequently. And so I'm a real fan of trying to have clinicians understand kind of the underlying pathology. Because you've got a lot of problem solving, and especially in these particular situations, right? You have diseases that present very similar, but they can have very different underlying mechanisms, and they can also have very different treatment strategies because of that. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time, not going too deep, but trying to give sort of the basics of how to differentiate between the two and some understanding of what's happening with the immune system. Mm-hmm. Then take a look a little bit about how diet impacts these diseases. At different times of the disease and in different phases, there's different nutritional requirements, and different treatment strategies when someone's inflamed versus when they're quiet, when they're under stress versus when they've got like a viral infection or are sick. So how can you start to sort of take a look and say, like, well, what type of nutritional protocol impacts that? We'll talk a little bit about kind of FODMAP, and carbohydrates, and how that plays a role, and how that dovetails with changes in the bacteria in the gut and the microbiome. Mm-hmm. And that's, how the immune system kind of plays off on that, and what we can do kind of nutritionally to start to deal with that, talk about some of the different foods that, just in my general experience personally, causes a lot of problems. It's like right now, for example, I remember when I was first diagnosed, it's like, well, cut out all the allergens, go on the Scotch-Shall diet or the carbohydrate specific diet. Yeah. And do that. And that was a real train wreck for me. It didn't work well at all. And there was lots of reasons why that was, and at the same time, it's like, well, take probiotics. And that's another thing too, right? I see many patients where this is really contraindicated. So I think having a discussion about what that looks like can help to sort of, at least help you not make people worse, first, right? Yep. Yeah. So that's that. And then we'll talk a little bit about some of the genetics around this. Nestle Health Sciences, Atrium Innovations, I've been one of their key opinion leaders. I've done educational content for them for many years. I think it goes back to about 2010, I've been with them. The last 5-6 years, we've been spending a lot on gut ecology and gut health, and then also building off of the Nutrigenomics platforms and the Pure Insight platform. And there's some interesting stuff within there in terms of like identifying, for example, I see a lot of patients with Crohn's disease that have fistulas, and they have these horrible conditions that are really quite painful. And it turns out that vitamin D has a really important role to play in that, and understanding that if someone has a genetic variant around, low vitamin D production, that might be something you need to know in terms of just dosing and things like that. And there's a host of other nutrients in there that we'll talk about a little bit as well too. So spend some time a little bit on some cases if we have some time. Usually I have way more slides than we have time to cover. Open it up to some questions. Try and make sure that, like I said, I have a bunch of slides to go through, but I really like to make sure that people get opportunities to ask questions, and just get something that works for them, because I really enjoy the interaction with people and being able to share my experience with this, and share some practical clinical stuff on this as well too, other than just sort of reading off of a list of slides. So yeah, if you're coming, be prepared to ask questions. I'm more than happy to put the slide deck to the side and have a conversation about that. So I'd love to have that. That's really like how I like to present.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, you're going to be speaking to a room full of people who love nutrition, right? We love talking about food. So will you be incorporating some strategies around maybe food or nutrients or ingredients we can use personally or with our clients or within our scope?
Sure, yeah, and that'll all fit in there as well too. Each one of those conversations will talk about either specific nutrients, or we'll talk a little bit about, what dietary strategy you might want to take a look at that as well. And like I said, use some cases to discuss that, and then it becomes a little bit more practical and applicable.
Amazing. Sounds like it's going to be a very packed presentation, which we're very excited for. And we'd love to ask all our presenters if you have maybe a fun fact or a hidden talent about yourself that maybe people don't know about.
Like I said, I always get stuck on this one. It's like I said, I don't know, I'm a pretty boring guy. I just spend a lot of time in practice and go home, sort of thing. But I do have a 2.5-year-old daughter who's keeping me hopping. And it turns out that probably the secret fact now is probably the only media consumption that I have is actually Peppa Pig on YouTube.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Yeah.
So good, so good. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story and talking about your presentation. We cannot wait to see it. And again, for everyone who's watching, if you don't have your conference tickets yet, you want to go and get them. You can go to csnalumni.org under the conference tab and buy those. We do have our 2 dates, one in Calgary, April 12th, and then again in Toronto, May 10th. Now, even though Dr. Spooner is going to be in Calgary, the great news is when you buy your ticket for either conference, you can't join this presentation live. You're still going to get the full recordings with that Toronto conference. So you're not going to miss this presentation or any of those. Again, the conference is open to all wellness practitioners, to students and the public. And again, thank you for taking your time to talk with us today. I cannot wait to hear I will be in Calgary, so I can't wait to hear it live in Calgary this year with you.
Great. Well, looking forward to meeting you in person.
Perfect. Great. Thanks so much.
Take care.